Hi everyone. Um, so we're beginning Unit 3 and I thought I would just put out a very brief video introducing the unit and kind of explaining what the next couple weeks are going to look like. So Unit 3, what I've done is I've combined the most important concepts from the course into this unit. Okay, so we're going to be covering a bunch of different things. We're going to be looking at linear equations. We're going to be learning how to graph linear equations. We're going to be able to solve word problems and all of that. So just to kind of talk about what we've done so far in the class, so far we've only worked with equations that contain a single variable, right? Meaning they contain an x, or maybe they contain a p, or maybe they contain a w, but they don't contain more than one type of letter, right? So for example, we've been working a lot, we've seen x, but we've also seen other variables. What we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be moving to looking at equations that contain two variables. Okay, so for example, equations that kind of look like this, where we might have a y and an x, right? Where we have two different letters, two different variables, x and y. So that's where we're headed, okay? So when we're working with equations that have two variables, one of the variables, and usually it's the x, but it's not always the x because we work with different letters, but usually the x is defined as the independent variable. And the other variable, usually the y, but again, not always, is defined as the dependent variable. Okay, so in other words, the value of y depends on the value of x. So let's consider this equation here, okay, where we have y is equal to 5x plus 7. Okay, so if we were to put in a value of x of 2, so if we let x equals 2, then we're going to get a value of y, 5 times 2, which is 10, plus 7, which is 17, right? So the value of y depended on the value of x. Similarly, right, if we let x equals negative 5, then it's 5 times negative 5 plus 7, which brings us to negative 18. So again, the value of y depended on what the value of x was. Okay, now I don't want you to worry too much about independent and dependent variables. We will definitely cover this topic again, especially when we get to solving word problems. Okay, I promise we'll cover this topic. I just wanted to briefly introduce it. All right, so consider the following statement, okay? So consider Jenny has $50 in her savings account. Every week, she adds $15. How much money will Jenny have after X weeks? Okay, so after an unknown number of weeks. So, okay, just like any word problem, right? We start off by defining our variables, okay? So look, I'm gonna have two variables. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna let Y represent the amount of money in Jenny's savings account. And I'm gonna let X represent the number of weeks that she's been saving for, okay? So if we consider that, then which one of these variables depends on the other? Does the amount of money in Jenny's savings account depend on the number of weeks she's been saving? Or does the number of weeks depend on how much money is in her account, right? So you can see that only one of those ways makes sense, right? So the amount Jenny saves, which is Y, depends on the number of weeks she's been saving money, right? So this means Y is the dependent variable and X is the independent variable, okay? So if our equation would look like this, right? We would have y is equal to 15x plus 50. Just zoom out for a second, right? So Jenny has $50 in her account, which is why we have a constant of 50. And every week she adds $15, right? So if X is 1 week, right, then we would substitute in a value of 1 here and calculate Y. If X was 20 weeks, then we would substitute in the number 20 for X and calculate Y. So again, Y depends on X. All right. So let's talk about this week's main topic, okay? This week we're going to be talking all about the coordinate system. Sometimes the coordinate system is also called the coordinate plane. So if you hear me using both terms, they both mean the same thing, okay? And why are we learning about the coordinate system? Well, the coordinate system is used to graph equations that contain two variables, okay? And it helps us see the relationship between these variables. All right, so I'm going to stop here and we will move on to the lesson notes. So make sure you print off a copy for yourself and get ready for lesson 3.1.